Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
So, welcome back, friends. Again, continuing with the action research part. Just very quickly, we brief about what we have discussed in the earlier classes. We have reached up to the meaning we have completed, the definitions we have completed, the approach or stages which we need to discuss were completed. The core meaning of action research was discussed earlier. Categories were discussed earlier, and now we were discussing about the basic classification of the action research, where we discussed that there were two different classifications. The first classification included two types, the second classification included two types. The first classification included types were individual research and collective collaborative research. And in the classification 2, what we discussed was practical action research and participatory action research. So now let us further in detail discuss about the how this action research is worked, what steps are to be included, what are the models of action research process, and how we need to go about with the process. Now we are very well aware about the meaning, its significance, its objectives, and what are the types of action research what we are doing. So categories are very much clear, I hope, to all of you. And now we shall discuss with the models of action research process. Now various authors have given different models to explain the process of research differently. As we all know, we discussed that a lot of people working with action research. Thus, the number and name of steps in the action research process explained by author is different. There was one David Tripp, his model of action research as the action inquiry cycle. Action inquiry cycle is a term used for process that follows a cycle in which one improves practice by systematically moving towards the talking actions in the field of practice and inquiring into it. One plans, implements, describes, and evaluates an improving change to one's practice. Learning more about both the practice and action inquiry in process. This is one kind of action research expectation. Chemists and McTaggart, the cyclic model, which has 4 steps: plan, act, observe, and reflect. This shows how reflection leads to the next stage of planning. Action research model suggested by Sussman illustrates 5 steps: diagnosing, defining a problem, action planning, considering alternative courses of action, taking action, selecting courses of action, evaluating, that is studying the consequences of an action, and specifying learning, that is identifying the findings. John Elliott's model of action research emphasizes constant evaluation and redefinition of original goal, and through a series of reconnaissances recurring every cycle. The reconnaissance includes some degree of analysis. Hapkins and Kumar said that research process starts either to improve any practice or to take action to deal with a problem or an issue. Through research, evidence is gathered regarding the importance of an issue, and accordingly, an appropriate action is taken to deal with it. Now, all these 3 to 4 people we discussed, what they talked about action research. What steps? There were 3 steps in some. You all might have observed while I was speaking that in some models there was 3 steps. In some models there were 4 steps. In some models there were even 5 steps. But the core thing started from planning to observing, implementing, observing, findings. So what they all conceptualized action research was on the area, on the task, on the activities they had to perform. And with these models, we can at least remember that how action research works. When we talk about action research, friends, it is very much important to know all these models and learn about the idea of action research, what they exactly wanted, what they exactly perceptionized action research as, and how they wanted action research to be, because they were the ones to start with the process of action research. And that continued with the phase of time, and that helped us to conduct action research efficiently. If we talk about model of action research, it is prepared after considering various models of action research, which was given by different authors. We have different people who take, and as then when the time passes, we have different kind of people with different aspects. Now, there can be some examples of conducting survey with the aim to improve household water management of a village. Now, how do you improve household water management? With the use of different extension strategies. So what happens is, using of water in a home or in a village is a kind of a problem you are having, or is the identified stage of what exactly we want to do. Now, from that particular thing, now how the water is used in village, you have to identify first number of thing, the a village. You have to find out the water availability circumstances around the village and within the village. There are many states where we know that they have very less amount of water in the state. For example, Rajasthan. We understand that in Rajasthan there is less availability of water compared to Gujarat. So what happens is, you have to, when we say that usage of water, you should know the geographical conditions of that particular village. You have to identify the village. You have to understand the geographical circumstances. You have to understand the mindset of the people, how they are used, how they are practiced to use the water in the village. For example, if we talk about one village in Gujarat, I mean, nowadays, you know that there is a competition of making an ideal city, ideal village, smart city, smart village, everything. For that, the practices are to be improved in the particular area. In one of the villages of Gujarat, what they did was they experimented with action research in this way only, in using the water. What happened is that we know that water is available in sufficient amount, but they thought of implementing a policy where water can be saved, so that they can help other people in the nearby surroundings, in the nearby areas. And for that, what can be done? So what they started doing is, they experimented for 1 month that whatever vessels in each and every household of that particular village, everyone is eating food, everyone is using utensils, everyone is going to washrooms, everyone is going taking bath. So just with one typical criteria of collecting water which is used for washing the vessels, it was collected in one bucket, because we all know that we wash vessels by two waters. So each and every household of that village had minimum of 2 tubs of water for one time, in one time of food, that is maybe the morning cycle. So 2 tubs of water in morning, 2 tubs of water in evening, that reached to the amount of 4 tubs of used water from one household in the village. Similarly, if we imagine that there are 50 houses in one village, so 200 buckets of used water for washing utensils was stored in one day. Now this water was daily used in planting plants. So what happened? This water nourished the plants. The water was used also. It was not wasted in a way which water earlier used to go into gutters. What happened? The water was used for planting plants, and the village, in very few period of time, in 2 to 3 months, it was a lush green village. And the amount of water they wasted, they used in developing greenery, which led to clean environment, which led to oxygen availability. Also, it saved lot of water which was in a way used for planting. What if we plant a tree, or if we plant a plant, what do? We use 1 mug of water for one plant. Imagine if there are 200 buckets of water in one village, which was used water and which was used for planting trees nearby. What happened was, number of plants and trees increased, number of nourishment increased, because in a way it was a waste, it was water also which contained all the food or waste which was there in the household itself, and that gave nourishment to plants, and that led to a lush green village, and it genuinely became a green village. This was again an example of action task given to a village, and it was successfully completed by them. All of them were working for the betterment and for the plantation. Everyone was taking care of plants. Everyone was strictly taking care that each and every household should plant one tree, or each and every household should select an area and water the plants or garden nearby their household. So in this way, the action research worked over there. In this way, the resultant was number of trees and number of plants in the village was record breaking as compared to other nearby villages or villages in the state which really had good soil. So such kind of researches can result to successful and positive implementation, positive result, and a change with the mindset. Even the children in the villages started learning that we should plant. Everyone, like in the morning, we all remember that we have to brush our teeth, we have to take bath, we have to eat food, we have to go out, we have to wear good dress, we have to wear clean dress. Similarly, the children in that village learned to water the plants. They learned to grow plants. They learned to develop the practice of living with the nature. They learned to, in a way, serve the country, in a way, serve the state. And it was adopted by the generations and generation, and till date, the only village which can be considered as a lush green village. So this is a kind of change we can very well think and start with our own household, our own nearby areas. Through what? Through such kind of action research. Now, when we talk about action research, let us discuss the steps of action research. How do we go about? When we were simply talking that there are these many stages, 4 stages, 3 stages. Now, let us genuinely talk about the stages when we talk about extension work, when we talk about action research, when we talk about the carrying out of the action research. Basically the research cycle of action project or action research works with 4 main tasks. The first step is planning, second is action, third is observation, fourth is reflection, and from reflection again the planning starts. This was a cycle we were talking about, that it goes and goes on. So we start with planning, action, observation, and reflection. We need to remember these 4 stages of action research when we talk about research which is to be done by any kind of action plan or action participation. Now, what exactly is to be done when we talk about these 4 stages? What exactly planning is? What exactly action is? What exactly observation is? How reflection is reflected? How we can see that the reflection is there? How we can see that the change is there? Let us discuss about each and every point individually. The first point is planning. Now, what the planning says? Planning is to identify a focus area of your practice that presents a puzzle, problem, a question, and plan strategies to change or improve the situation. Very clearly, when we talk about plan, if we all remember the story of Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, it was said that Arjun was given task and all the Pandavas were given task of targeting the eye of the bird. Every child had a different perception, but Arjun knew what he had to see and he targeted there. Basically, planning in action research is same as what Arjun did. We have to target our focus area. We should know exactly what, not running around the bush and bush and bush. We have to know that what exactly the problem is. Problem is unavailability of water in the village, as we said. Problem is about the consciousness, what we wanted. Problem is about the awareness which was lacking. At times what happens, we all have things in front of us, but we don't know how to use. We don't know how to use it correctly, rather. We use it, but we don't use our brains at times because we don't want to make our mindset or make our brain exercise what is happening, what we can do, how we can do. So planning is very much important. Planning involves identifying the issue or the problem that needs to be changed. Information is gathered from various sources. You need to collect information for better understanding of the problem. This is a forward-looking phase where you consider what kind of investigation is possible within the realities. That is, what is really to be done. what potential improvements you think are possible. You have to think about the possibilities also. It includes development of a research plan which is practical, appropriate, and which is feasible, we can say, right? There are various models of action research given by different authors. We all discussed it earlier that the so and so said that, so and so said that for a different typical kind of a situation. It also includes making a plan for data collection. Data collection is again very much important. What data are you going to look at? How are you going to collect it, and how often you are going to collect it? All of this must be determined before the research begins. This is where planning is. For example, identifying the issue to be changed. Improper water management and unhygienic drinking water practices are local problems and concerns within the community. Thus, this serves as an issue of the study. This can be considered as one of the issue of study. Looking elsewhere for information, collecting information from reports of any project and previous study to understand the extent of the problem in that area. Getting a list of water tables of all blocks of the district. Select the blocks, you can select 2, 3, 4 with lowest table for finalizing sample of the study. Developing a research plan, this is again very much important. This includes deciding the sample size of the study. 20 women from each of the 3 selected village, if we consider this village as an example. Data collection tool to be used, it can be interview, it can be implementation, physical observation. This is followed by selection of household water management practices. Quality of testing of water, cleaning of water storage tanks, usage of efficient gadgets to save water at household level, and development of extension strategies that will be used to disseminate the information. Now, what happened when we talk about planning? Now, what planning we did in this particular objective or a problem or issue? What they said was, first we need to find out what the problem is. Then along with the problem, we should know from where you are going to collect the data, how you are going to collect the data, how much data is to be collected, why this much data will be sufficient. Do you feel that this data will be sufficient for getting information or for getting a productive result of the issue or problem we are wanting to solve? What the example given we discussed was what we did. We selected 3 villages nearby. The water management technique was to be discussed. So as in the earlier example we discussed, how is the water available, what are the practices, who will be your sample, along with the data collection, planning of problem, data collection, and what will be your sample size. You all know, you all are aware about the data collection techniques, you all are aware about what is a sample. I don't think I need to discuss about that, but just to give a brief, data is something what you are going to collect from the identified population or identified group of population living in the nearby area where you want to conduct the study. Samples are the people, they are the target group from which the information you want, you are planning to collect. That sample size should be defined in the planning stage itself. That means that planning stage is one of the very important stage of action research, because when we plan, we have a roadmap in front of us, that from where we start, what we are going to do at the second stage, what we are going to do at the third stage, what we are going to do at the fourth stage, final stage. So you know, you have to visualize what you want to do. You have to visualize that what is exactly the problem, what exactly you are trying to find out. So with that vision, you will work. The vision should be clear, that objective should be clear, the sample size, how you are going to take about, how you are going to carry forward your study, how fruitful, the fruitfulness of your research, the fruitfulness or productivity of your action research basically depends on your perfect planning. So the first step of planning is definitely one of the most important and the core area where you have to focus upon while conducting a action research. At times, if the planning is poor, or if there is a mismatch in the planning and what exactly the implementation is to be done or what is to be found out, you will end up with zero result. So planning is to be done very tactfully. The planning is to be done with full scientific vision in your mind, that why we call it as, what is science basically? It is a clear mindset with what you have to act, with no ifs, no buts, no reasons there. You have to do means you have to do. The planning should be 1, 2, 3, 4, very brief, with no essay, no katha, no story, nothing but stepwise plan of execution of the research, of the project, of the work which is to be done, which is to be expected from us to be done. Right? So once the planning, it is very well said in English, we all know that well begun is half done. So this is almost kind of a well begun thing. Planning is well begun, and if your planning is perfect, if your planning is proper, and if you stick to the planning which is to be done, if you stick to the mindset of the researcher, you are halfway through your action research. Now moving to the next step. Next step is acting. Collect information systematically about this focus area. You have to act with what you have planned. Now you have to move further. Now the planning stage is clear. Now you know what is the data. Now you know what is the sample size. Now you know where you have to work, which village, which city, which area, which group, which institution, which business area, which engineering, XYZ, any area of yours. Any area where you have to work, you are very much clear. Now with that particular plan, you start your action, you start your acting, you start your plan of execution. Now this step involves collection of data, which is the basic thing which you have to do. It is data collection from the subjects before applying actual action plan to get an idea about the existing situation. So first what we have to do is that we start doing, we have to act. But once you have planned, once you are clear with the paperwork, now what you have to do, you have to start with data collection regarding what the situation where we are right now, what exactly you want. After the implementation of the action plan, data is collected for analyzing the effect of action. Usually used tools of data collection are classified into two categories. Now again, before discussing about the categories or data collection part, what was focused here was that you have to collect data twice. We have to understand this. Why twice? One, for the existing situation where we are standing today. Once you are clear with what is the present status, then your plan starts execution. So first stage, second stage, third stage, fourth stage, now we know where we have to reach. So once you have the basic information data, then you implement or execute what you exactly wanted that particular area to be done. That action is done, that training is given. After the training is over, what is the change which was expected? Do the samples which you have selected, they have that change inculcated in them or not? That is important. And for that, basic data and the data after the action is done, you have to compare the two data, and so both the data collection should be very perfectly, very precisely done. That can be statistically done, that can be theoretically done, that can be numerically done. Now for data collection tools they were talking about, what is the data collection tool related to experiencing? It involves gathering data by researchers' own experience through observation. That is non-participant observations and participant observation. This means for field notes. This means here in data collection, you are not involving any of the target group in giving information. What I am doing is, I am going to a particular area, I am looking here, I am looking there, I am looking there, and then I am trying to find out what exactly the situation is. And I will note down the points. I will not ask them. If I am asking, at times what happens, if on a lighter note, if we go for a marriage proposal or a matrimony proposal, जब लड़का लड़की के घर या लड़की लड़का के घर जाते हैं तो what happens? वाह, एवरीथिंग इज शोकेस्ड. सो सब कुछ बहुत परफेक्ट होता है. हम लोग सब ड्राइंग रूम मस्त सजा हुआ होता है, खाने की प्लेट बहुत अच्छी होती है, चाय बहुत मस्त सर्व होती है, कोल्ड ड्रिंक दिया जाता है, तो पूरी वाहवाही मिले ऐसा एक प्रेजेंटेशन आइदर ब्राइड या ग्रूम के घर पे जहाँ पे भी मिलना होता है वहाँ पे होता है. बट वी हैव टू सी द इनसाइड स्टोरी. सो व्हाट हैपेंस इज, कई बार पीपल डू दैट. They try to go to the kitchen, they try to go to the washroom and see that what exactly the condition is. That means बाहर के कपड़े ही सिर्फ अच्छा होना ज़रूरी नहीं है. You have to see what is the inner story, and for that if you are asked with the question, you will always give that ideal kind of questions, ideal kind of answers. I mean, आंसर्स बहुत परफेक्ट होते, क्योंकि हम जानते, आज हम सब जानते हैं कि सच बोलना चाहिए, झूठ नहीं बोलना चाहिए। हम सब जानते हैं रोज सुबह ब्रश करना चाहिए, हम सब जानते हैं कि रात को 10 बजे सो जाना चाहिए, हम सब जानते हैं कि हमको स्मोक नहीं करना चाहिए, हम सब जानते हैं हमको पान मसाला नहीं खाना चाहिए। व्हाट वी डू, कोई पूछेगा तो हम इन सब चीज़ों के लिए हाँ और ना जिसमें जो सूटेबल है, विल टॉक दैट ओनली। That is why in certain area in action research, observation technique is used. In observation technique for action research, you know what is correct, you know the existing situation, you have to see. When I'll see that in 10, if I select 10 houses in a area, and I will find out that I should see that whether these 10 houses have young population of between 15 to 25 years of age group, how many boys, how many girls, how many of them are smoking, how many of them are eating pan gutka, how many of them are very much clean and they keep their hygiene practices very perfect. If I ask them, they are going to deny. What I have to do is I have to see, I have to observe them for 10 days, 7 days. Maybe they are knowing, maybe they are not knowing. Because what happens is, if they are knowing also, any person can act for a day or a two. Nobody can drop their routine practices in normal way, in a routine way. So they have to observe and they have to note down. Field notes are to be prepared, day-to-day notes are to be prepared for the data collection, where you are observing, where you are trying to find out what has happened. You are not asking any sample, you are not taking their information, you are not interviewing them as well, you are not asking them to fill up the questionnaire. You are observing, you are finding out what the problem is, you are finding out what is the current situation. There are many surveys where we know that adolescent girls are there. Adolescent girls basically lack with the hemoglobin level. So what is to be done? You don't have to ask them, or maybe if you ask them, what are your routine eating practices? You will find out from their routine eating practices that whether they have HB rich food or not. If HB rich food is there, then they have to, they are still lacking something. But then you improve their diet practices. For 10 days, you give them everything which is rich in hemoglobin. Maybe you ask them to eat beetroot, you ask them to eat amla, you ask them to drink certain juices. After 10 days of continuous consumption of particular type of food practice, now you have to find out what is the different hemoglobin level, what is the difference in the hemoglobin level before that eating practice and after that eating practice. You have the result. So that is observation and then implementation. Now the second part what we have to see is data collection tools related to inquiring. Collection of data by asking people, taking their participation, including their interviews, that can be personal interviews, group interviews, mass interviews, open-ended or close-ended questionnaires you can ask, interview schedules can be planned, attitude scales, group discussions can be done. Now what is this basically? Now in this practice what we have to do is that you have to ask the participant. You don't have to say that I am observing and you are doing. It's not so. You have to involve the participant, you have to ask the participant, he or she, he will respond to what he is doing, what she is doing. Interview schedules, we all know what interview schedules are. Daily you have to go there and meet your sample and ask what is their routine practice. I mean, depending upon the research or depending upon the work they are doing. Interview schedules, then questionnaires can be open-ended and close-ended. We all know, friends, what is open-ended question, what is close-ended question. Open-ended questions means you have to answer, you have to ask and they will respond. Close-ended questions means yes, no, or 5-point scale, 3-point scales are used in that. So we were discussing about the data collection practices. Friends, in today's session, just to sum up, we have discussed about the models of action research. We have discussed about the various authors who gave their own individual models of action research, and now we were discussing about the phases, the stages of action research. We completed with the planning stage and we are discussing about the acting stage. In acting stage, we discussed about two types of data collection. The rest type of Data collection practices will be discussed in the next class. The two types of data collection techniques which we discussed, one was observation and one was the data collection with the involvement of participation. It was great pleasure talking to you all about the action research stages. So meet you soon in the next class with with continuing with the stages of data collection in action research. Thank you very much.
स्वाध्यायः परमं तपः